All right, this is a video for all those Prius owners, specifically Gen 3, I think it's 2010 to 2015, who've had a rough idle at start. And those who've had this know what I'm talking about. Car generally is cold, freezing or below. You start it up and there's a misfire. There's something going on. You feel this intense rattling. It lasts 15, 30 seconds, then it goes away. Now, it's been discussed a lot in the forums. What exactly does this mean? Should I be worried? Well, this is my impression because my car has it. I got this car in 2016. It was a year old. I got it for 15 grand. It had 15,000 miles. And it's a Model 2 or whatever it is. It's the least expensive car they make. Now, I got it because one, it was cheap. Two, I'd always wanted one. And three, I was going to go cross country, and Priuses are great for going cross country, and you can sleep in the back. And it was the last year they made it. So I figured, last year they're making it. I like the interior better than the 4th gen. So I got this model. And I noticed after a year or two, when it was cold in the morning, I would occasionally have this rough start. So I researched it on the internet. And there appears to be a wide, what we call differential, or multiple reasons why it could occur. One of the ones that's most worrisome is the idea that you have a head gasket leak, that coolant's getting into the combustion chamber and causing the problem. So not being a mechanic and not really knowing how to go along that way, I of course went to YouTube and looked at all the videos. So I'll show you my thought process, what I did. Hopefully it'll help someone who has a 3rd gen Prius that has this rough idle for 15 to 30 seconds when they first start it up when it's cold. And maybe it'll help you. I don't know. I hope it does. So the first thing I worried about was coolant leak, a head gasket. And what I noticed is there's my coolant level. And I checked it, and it was always about that level, right at the top of the L or the low mark. But still not being convinced, I did the next thing. I looked inside the valve cover and I looked for, do I have that sort of tan, slimy looking oil that comes from being mixed with coolant? No, I didn't have that. So I thought, okay, well, it's not that, but still not trusting my skills. I then started to check the dipstick. It too showed nice, clean, clear amber oil, and the oil wasn't getting higher. The level of the dipstick stayed the same day after day. So my thought process was, there's coolant leaking out of here, out of the radiator into the head gasket. Then this is gonna drop. It didn't. This will rise up because I was driving my car short distances like most people do, 4 or 5 miles. So it's gonna fill up the crankcase and I'll be having to have excess oil, or I'm gonna have that sort of tannish, gooey look inside the valve cover. None of that happened. So I kept looking and saying, what could it be? So then I said, well, I'll pressure test the system. Well, what most people who have these Priuses discovered is that you can't go to AutoZone or O'Reilly's or almost anywhere and get an adapter for this reservoir. They just don't seem to exist. And I discovered that, in fact, there is one. It took me a while to find it, but it fits perfectly. It's designed for the Prius. And then you put the pressure tester up here. So I installed it and proceeded to pressure test it. Now, not knowing exactly what pressure I was supposed to put in, they say it's 108 kilopascals, whatever that is. I picked 13 PSI. And I would pump it up to 13 PSI. And it would hold for about 3 or 4 minutes, and then it would slowly drift downwards. I thought, well, it's supposed to hold it forever. Well, it doesn't. So I did it about a dozen times. And what I noticed is each time I pressurized it, and the pressure would slowly drop off of this device with the pressure tester, the coolant level was still the same. So my thought process was, well, if I've really got a head gasket leak, or any other leak, not necessarily the head gasket, I will see the coolant level drop. Well, it didn't drop. Well, having a number of friends who are mechanically sophisticated, I talked to them and they said, yeah, that makes sense. So I'm thinking, well, I don't like it. It's clearly not good when it's misfiring. It's very rough. It sounds terrible. And I thought, okay, what can I do? So what I did is right here on the third gens is the MAF sensor, mass airflow sensor. I thought, well, I'll clean it. And what I did is obviously made sure the key to the Prius was far, far away, because anybody who owns a Prius knows these things wake up when the key's around. Pulled off the 2 screws. These I think are Phillip or something. You can figure it out. There are lots of videos on YouTube on how to clean this. Disconnected the MAF sensor here and sprayed the heck out of it with mass airflow cleaner sensor stuff. People tell me you should use this. Don't use WD-40 or something else. Just do the right thing. And since they make a specific product for this specific purpose, I thought, okay, if it is dirty and the car has 65,000 miles, I got it with 15,000, then we'll clean it up. And since the mass airflow sensor controls the air-fuel ratio, I thought, okay, we'll do that. Well, you know, as usual when you're working in cars, you have that, well, while I'm there, I might as well do something. So there is a throttle body here. And it's a little hard to see, but I went to my favorite site, which is Nuts and Bolts, watched his video on how to do the mass airflow sensor, and watched his video on the throttle body air intake. Now, I'm not showing it to you because obviously there's a million videos on how to do it, but it was dirty, and I sprayed this on a rag, went in and cleaned the area, and lo and behold, it solved the problem. Don't know if it was the MAF or the throttle body. I have no idea what it was because I did nothing else to the car. I haven't had the problem since. Now it's warmer, of course, so I generally don't get it. I don't think most Prius owners get it when it's warm. Well, not being the kind of guy that's convinced by the data, I, of course, changed the oil. I always use a genuine Toyota filter. I use the 0W20. Kirkland seems to get good reviews. It was relatively inexpensive. So I changed the oil. And then I thought, well, am I sure that I don't have coolant in my oil? So I sent off a sample to Blackstone. And I've got about 6 of these analyses available. And it costs like $25 a pop when you do 6 at a time. When you purchase 6 at a time. And I sent it in, and about a week later, got an email that said absolutely no evidence of coolant. I think sodium and potassium are 2 of the things that are found in terms of the minerals, not present. There wasn't any coolant in terms of, he measures it, there was 0.0% of coolant. So this was another way of saying, hey, listen, you don't have coolant going into your engine because it's not in the oil. And my oil had 5,000 miles, about 12 months. I really had neglected the car. Normally I'd change it every 6 months, but it didn't happen. So I changed the fluid, took a sample, sent it off to Blackstone, and it confirmed that I do not have coolant in my crankcase. And since I cleaned the MAF sensor and I cleaned the throttle body, even when it was cold, I didn't have the problems anymore. So I just thought I'd tell you that this is what I experienced. Now, I think that this roughness at idle is due to many things. I think it's one symptom, roughness when you start it up and it's cold, and it could be to a gasket leak. It could be the MAF sensor needs to be cleaned. I doubt that the throttle body is the reason. But my car only has 65,000 miles. The spark plugs are good for 100,000 miles. So I wasn't worried that it was spark plugs. And in addition, in really, really cold weather, this thing will tick off 45 miles to the gallon. Now, I'm a hyper miler. So understand that. I don't think this thing has ever seen full throttle with me, ever. It doesn't use any oil because I don't add oil. It was 12 months and 5,000 miles. I had not added a drop of oil to this vehicle. And I've been told some Prius owners do consume oil. I'm not one of them. I'm very gentle with the car. I take real good care of it, change the oil, antifreeze, inverter coolant, transmission fluid. Those are things all very easy to do if you have any mechanical skills. So what I'm saying is, car has 65,000 miles. It's driven real gently. I too was having the problem with the rough idle for the 15 or 30 seconds when I started it up. And I was worried that I had a gasket leak, a head gasket leak. I've ruled that out by pressure testing it, by sending off the sample, by looking at the coolant level, looking at the color of the oil. It doesn't. Now, does that mean if you clean your MAF sensor, you're not going to have a head gasket leak? No, that's not what it means. It means you could have a head gasket leak. In my case, I didn't. I think I just needed to clean my mass airflow sensor. The throttle body cleaner, I just threw in because I could. I checked the air cleaner, air filter. Everything was fine. All the fluids are good. Everything's copacetic. But given how this is a relatively common concern in the third gen Priuses, I thought, I might as well share my experience. It might help somebody. I don't know. But if it does help you, great. If you're not sure how to do it, like I said, find somebody who can help you. There are multiple YouTube videos on how to do the mass airflow sensor, the throttle body, how to change the oil on this thing, even how to take a sample and send it to Blackstone for analysis. So I feel comfortable now that my car does not have a head gasket leak. And I feel comfortable that I solved the problem in this vehicle by cleaning the MAF and maybe the throttle body. It's got an oil change. It's good to go. Next thing is I'm going to start. I've already changed the tranny fluid once. That's real easy to do. And as always, use the Toyota tranny fluid. Don't try to cheap out. It's sort of like people who say, oh, I don't get the manufacturer filter because I saved $1. And I'm thinking, you're out of your mind. This is the manufacturer filter. Same thing, I don't use tranny fluid in a Toyota or a Honda or anything else that isn't the manufacturer's fluid. It's sort of a false savings to me. You might save a couple of bucks, but why would you risk a $4,000 transmission and saving $2, $3, $4? It's never made any sense to me to do that. Now, I know there's some people who really believe that saving that $2 or $3 and using a cheaper fluid that's, quote, compatible is a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea. I did tell you about Nuts and Bolts, Nutzbolt. Great channel. He does a lot of third gen Prius stuff. He also shows you how to flush your brake system. I highly recommend that. You know, the German cars do it every couple of years. There's a reason to do that. I'm not showing that today, but the idea is that these are incredible cars. They're cheap, they're rough riding, don't get me wrong, but in the summertime when it's 70 degrees outside and the car's just cruising around town, it's nothing to pull 65 miles to the gallon if you're a hypermiler. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope I didn't miss anything. Finding this tool was very good. I learned a lot by doing this and talking to a lot of friends who have a lot more mechanical experience than I do. And the car is good. It's going to be good for another 100,000 miles, easy peasy, assuming I do all the maintenance on a regular basis. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps somebody. And if you have any questions, just give me a buzz. Talk to you later. Keep smiling. Goodbye. All right, everybody. I found the Blackstone results. I'm going to hold the camera on it for a while because I know some people may want to read it. The point is, if you read the text up here, potassium and sodium are both low. And if you look down at potassium and sodium, it's 0. I don't know how much lower you can get than 0. And the sodium is 3. And the average for sodium is 19. For potassium, it is, what, 2? 2. So I thought that's cool. And then when he looked at the actual amount of coolant, he said there's no coolant. He thought the aluminum and iron were high for a 5,000-mile run. He indicated that this may not be a problem if you do lots of short trips and stop and go driving. Well, it's a Prius. That's what they kind of do. And I do that all the time. That's why I like this car for around town use, because it's a killer on fuel. It just hardly uses fuel at all if you drive it carefully. Now, he said also that realized that translating, both elements are translating to a 0.0% antifreeze, which is good. And the whole purpose of this, because I'd never done the Blackstone analysis on the Prius, was to give me another indication that there is no leak of coolant into the vehicle. And we'll scroll down. All right. They also do TBN, which is 3.5. Realize use the Costco synthetic oil. Reasonably priced. All the reviews have been good on it. Water, 0. Insolubles, antifreeze, 0. Fuel, 0.8. Less than 2 is what it should be. And the CST, the Centistokes viscosity, that's 100 degrees centigrade, 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It's running around 7, which is where it's supposed to be. The range is between 6 and 10, or 9.7. And that's wonderful viscosity at 100 degrees, which is the standard operating temperature. It's well within range of providing the protection for the vehicle. So I thought I'd find this Blackstone, tag it on to the video. I know people love this stuff. I know I do. So take care. Bye.